Here is the Writer's Almanac for Thursday, April the 18th, 2019. It's the anniversary of a famous event commemorated in a famous poem, which begins, "Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year." The first crossword puzzle book was published, Simon & Schuster, 1924, on this day. And it's the birthday of Clifton Keith Hillegass, born in Rising City, Nebraska, 1918. He was a textbook salesman who was up in Toronto and met a man who published condensed versions of 16 Shakespeare plays. And Clifton Hillegass bought him out and started a series of study aids which we know as CliffsNotes, hoping to make literature more accessible to students. He never intended for CliffsNotes to replace reading the book in the first place. He put a signed note in each pamphlet that said, "A thorough appreciation of literature allows no shortcuts." But generations of students have found that with CliffsNotes they didn't really need to read the books to be able to answer quiz questions and write a sort of essay based on the plot summaries and the discussions of theme and motif in CliffsNotes. It's the birthday of the man who inspired the word beatnik in the 1950s, the poet Bob Kaufman, born New Orleans, 1925, Roman Catholic mother, German Jewish father. Not much is known about his life. He didn't keep a diary, didn't save letters. He wrote 3 volumes of poetry, but he preferred to recite his poems in coffee houses rather than write them down. He spent 20 years in the Merchant Marine, circled the globe 9 times, survived 4 shipwrecks, and it was out at sea when he first read about the beat poets, many of whom also had been seamen. Gary Snyder had, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg. When Kaufman was back on land, he went to New York City. He met William S. Burroughs and Ginsberg. The 3 of them moved to San Francisco, where Kaufman liked to perform poetry, shouting it, improvising spontaneously on the street, for which he was arrested many, many times in 1959. And the columnist Herb Caen, who coined the word beatnik, said that he had Kaufman in mind. Bob Kaufman, who said, "I want to be anonymous. My ambition is to be completely forgotten." It was on this day, 1929, President Herbert Hoover nominated John Monroe Woolsey to the U.S. District Court in New York, who would go on to make several major decisions on freedom of expression, including his ruling that James Joyce's Ulysses was not pornographic. In his decision, he wrote that if the theme of sex seemed to be recurrent in the book, it must be always remembered that the locale was Celtic and the season was spring. It's the birthday of the comedy writer Conan O'Brien, born Brookline, Massachusetts, 1963, started out writing humor pieces for his high school newspaper, went to Harvard, wrote for The Lampoon, then Saturday Night Live, then The Simpsons. Here's a poem for Holy Week, a poem by William Blake entitled, "'Twas on a Holy Thursday." 'Twas on a holy Thursday, their innocent faces clean, the children walking 2 and 2 in red and blue and green. Gray-headed beadles walked before with wands as white as snow, till into the high dome of Paul's they like Thames waters flow. Oh, what a multitude they seemed, these flowers of London town. Seated in companies they sit, with radiance all their own. The hum of multitudes was there, but multitudes of lambs, thousands of little boys and girls, raising their innocent hands. Now like a mighty wind they raise to heaven the voice of song, or like harmonious thunderings the seats of heaven among. Beneath them sit the aged men, wise guardians of the poor. Then cherish pity, lest you drive an angel from your door. 'Twas on a Holy Thursday, the poem by William Blake. And that's the Writer's Almanac for Thursday, April the 18th, 2019. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.
Hi, this is Barbara Crooker wishing you a happy National Poetry Month. If you appreciate this program and the way it brings new poetry to a broad audience, please consider donating to the Writer's Almanac. There's a link to donate in the email newsletter.